Hello, everybody. Welcome to Lifestyles of the Rich in Faith Church and Lifestyles of the Rich in Faith Ministries. This is our YouTube channel, and we're going to begin starting off this new series called the Good Life series. And this is our first time, so bear with us. I hope everything is visually acceptable so you can now see me and along with the audio. So we're going to be doing this from this day forward. So in this new series, we just wrapped up the wealth series, and so we're doing YouTube because I know there's many would like to see what I look like, and it might help to for us to connect a little bit better, I think, with the visual. So I'm going to talk about what it means to have the good life, how to have a life that's actually pain-free, that's problem-free, and I'm going to explain that as we delve into it. And again, all my messages and sharing is based on biblical principles, the scriptures. So if you have a Bible, you can grab it, you can pull it up on your iPhone or smart device. I'm using the New King James Version of the Bible. There are many different versions of the Bible. I like to stay along the lines of the King James, Old King James, or the New King James, or variations of the King James, because for me that's the closest that speaks to my heart. But you find something that helps you. So our foundation will be taken from the Old Testament, Deuteronomy chapter 6, and this is taken from when God was speaking to the children of Israel. He made certain promises to them if they did certain things. So we're going to start with that. But as I open up this new series, what I'd like everybody to know and understand that in the very beginning, when God laid up the foundations of the earth and the heavens and the skies, our world, our earth that we live in Genesis chapter 1, it clearly says that his whole plan and purpose and desires for humanity was to live this goodness in life. The good lifestyle is what I call it. So all these lessons and sharing is going to be sharing with you of what I've discovered personally for myself on having a good life, because I'm living in it, and it gets better as I get older. Life can continually enhance itself if you cooperate with life and not fight against it. Fight against life, meaning, for example, a lot of people put themselves down. Never do that. Even if you can't do something, or if you haven't accomplished something, or if you don't have what you need or what you want, never beat up on yourself like that. Okay, that's called in a lot of circles, they call it self-sabotaging, demeaning yourself. So you want to move away from those type of mental anguishes, because that's not God. God is always good. Even when we don't understand bad things when they happen, never put the blame on him, okay? God is not a murderer. He's not a killer. He's a blesser. He's a rewarder. Everything and anything that has to do with goodness, you feeling good, you being good, you having good, that comes from him. He's the essence and the source of it. So I'm laying this all down so you know that there is no ifs about it. God doesn't do bad and do good. He does only good. He's incapable of all that other stuff. So let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 6. I'm gonna read where I like to would start off is in verse 10. But I'm going to encourage everyone that sees this video to study Deuteronomy chapter 6, the whole chapter offline, okay? But try to follow with me as I go through this to lay the groundwork now for a new series that I've never shared before. And I think, and I know God, my whole goal is to please God, okay? And this is really why I'm doing it, because he tells me in my own heart that, son, every time you share, I'm listening too. I'm watching too, because I get excited to hear about you talk about me. You know, now, we don't think of God like that a lot of times, but if we think about ourselves, how it makes us feel when people say good things about us, when they talk about our good traits or what we've done well or what we got right, how does it make you feel? Well, what I'm telling you is that I've discovered that it makes God feel even better when we talk about him. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I used to do it because I wanted people to learn. I do want you to learn what I know. But the great news is that knowing that God himself is listening to me and he's watching what I'm going to share about him, he's excited because he told me that this morning. So I'm going to start here in his book, Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 10. Okay? Just follow along with me. So it shall be when the Lord God brings you into the land which he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac and Jacob, to give you large and beautiful cities, which you did not build. Now notice that God loves beauty. See, the things that we typically like and enjoy, he typically likes and enjoys. The goodness of life. This is what I want to stress now. And this is what I want everyone to try to learn and recondition yourself to focus on the goodness of everything. Okay? The goodness, if you follow me over the next several lessons and sharings that we do with what the good life is and how to live in it and exist in it like all the time, whatever's not right in your life, whatever's not right with you will become less, 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 and less to the point that it is non-existence. Okay? Yes, it is very true. You can live, remember I said, the goal, now God told me, he said, son, listen, you can live today completely pain-free, problem-free, and, watch this, persecution-free.
Amen.
That got my attention. He said I was already on the right track, but you can keep going. Don't stop because life continually grows. So he says, beautiful cities which you did not build. Now, verse 11, Deuteronomy chapter 6 now, verse 11, here's where I'm. Houses full of all good things, which you did not fill, hewed out, wells which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant. When you have eaten and are full. Now, before I go on, notice that God is bringing them into a place where everything was already set. Now, I've often told people, or I've made comments about, it's very important that you learn what is called the setup. Okay, the setup means in Genesis chapter 1, Genesis chapter 2, and chapter 3. These are references that I'm quoting. Don't turn over there right now. But if you really read and study and prayerfully go over those verses, that was God setting up life. Okay, and in every verse, just about every verse, it closes out when God said after he created it, everything was good. He looked at it, he saw it, he says, wow, this is good. So see, this is why I'm saying, even today in our generation, that the good life is now. Amen. This is it. You're in it. Now, what we need to learn is how we partake of it because we're in his setup. The sky, the moon, the stars, the environment. See, we learn all these things and learn the setup and learn how they work. You can live today in our world a good lifestyle. So he says in verse 11, Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 11, houses full of all good things, which you did not fill, hewed out, wells which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant. When you have eaten and are full, well satisfied, here's a caution here, verse 12, beware lest you forget the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. You shall fear the Lord your God and serve him and shall take oaths in his name. You shall not go after other gods, the gods of the peoples who are all around you. For the Lord your God is a jealous God among you, lest the anger of the Lord your God be aroused against you and destroy you from the face of the earth. Now, what God is talking about is there is a definite set way that we are to behave and do things in this world, in the earth. And when you do, all the things in this earth and in this world collaborate with you. instead of trying to corrupt you, they will collaboration. So it's called a collaboration with the creation, I call it. Collaboration with the creation. When you have a correct, it's called righteousness. When you have a correct collaboration with the creation that surrounds you, then creation will give you more of itself in your life. It brings the goodness into you, to your being, and to your world around you. Now, when you don't collaborate properly with it, the opposite thing happens, which is called corruption. Okay? Non-collaboration with the creation that we live in brings corruption. So this is what God is warning against. He's not the one causing it. Okay? It's part of the setup. Yes, he set it up, but he's given us a unique gift. Every individual has this, and it's called the gift of choice. Okay, the gift of choice. We can make selections, and we're making selections of choice continually. So when he says when you make these good and right choices, then the beauty of creation and the goodness of life takes place in your world. Now here we go on to verse 13. You shall fear the Lord your God and serve him, and shall take oaths in his name. You shall not go after other gods, the gods of the peoples who are all around you. For the Lord your God is a jealous God among you, lest the anger of the Lord God be aroused against you and destroy you from off the earth. Deuteronomy 6:16. You shall not tempt the Lord your God as you tempted him in Massah. You shall diligently keep the commandments of the Lord your God, his testimonies, his statutes, which he has commanded you. And you shall do what is right and good in the sight of the Lord, that it may be well with you, and that you may go in and possess the good land of which the Lord swore to your fathers, to cast out all your enemies from before you, as the Lord has spoken. When your sons ask you in time to come, saying, what is the meaning of the testimonies, statutes, and judgments which the Lord your God has commanded you? Then you shall say to your son, we were slaves in Pharaoh's Egypt, and the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand. And the Lord showed signs and wonders before our eyes, great and severe, against Egypt, Pharaoh and all his household. He brought us out of there, that he might bring us in to give us the land of which he swore to our fathers. Now, I want to share three things with you that are very key to the good life. He mentions here in the Bible here, it talks about his commandments. Commandments are principles. Another word for commandments are principles. A principle means it's the first and most important part of anything. Okay? So when you discover a principle, that's something that's fixed. That's part of God's setup. So like, for example, the seasons of a year are divided into 4 different seasons. Spring, what do we have? Spring, summer, fall, winter. Those are principles. And life is like the seasons. Not all of life, but a part of life are like the 4 seasons. Okay? Now, in order to better live in each season, you have to know and discover God's principles of the setup that helps those seasons in your life function. So in the Bible, they call commandments. Now, I know religiously there's the 10 commandments. The Jews have over 630 some odd commandments. But now when they talk about those commandments, they're actually talking about something else that in the book here, it's called statutes. Statutes are our English word that we use called laws. Laws. Okay, now these are very important. These are some fundamental concepts that I'm sharing that I want you to think about that maybe you haven't thought of before. Once you discover a principle in life, then that principle works universally. Okay, meaning it doesn't matter where you are, typically, who you are, and it's independent of that. In other words, principles of God cannot be manipulated or changed by man. That's the difference. Now, a law is also, or in the book here he says statutes. A law is something that when it's executed, it works. Also with a law, if you take that same law and try to make it do something that it wasn't originally designed or created to do, that's called violation. And in every violation comes a penalty with it. That's what God is saying. So he's saying, look, when I created this up this way, see how orderly God is? That's why God says, look, I am a rewarder of those who diligently seek me. Okay, so that means when you don't seek after him and his ways, then you won't be rewarded properly. This is why in the New Testament, when we get over there, I'm going to show you, this is why Jesus said that, look, the most important principle, in other words, he said, seek first. See, the word first means the very most important part of life and living and being alive is your quest for discovering God for yourself. Okay, notice I said for yourself. Yours and my quest, our searching, our investigation is a personal matter. You have to take it on every day. That is, if you want to learn and make these discoveries about how God created things and how things are supposed to work correctly. Now, you can take the correctly designed things of God in creation and use them incorrectly. And when you do, you may feel or get a good type of results for a limited time frame until ultimately something snaps or breaks. And that's what generally causes pain, problems, persecutions, and destructions. Now, nothing in life, in the setup, just happens automatically. Now, it may appear to happen automatically, but generally speaking, and in Genesis chapter 8, verse 22, here's another setup verse. God said, as long as the earth remains, there would be seed time and harvest. Now, what that means, I generally refer to that as the law of time. Okay, God has given us, one of God's greatest gifts is time. That's his wealth. That's a type of wealth that God gives. He controls time. It says in the scriptures that one day with him is as 1,000 years to mankind. So see, what God is saying, 1,000 years could pass by in the way we understand time. And God considers that as one day, or one day as 1,000 years. Okay, so I'm saying to you is that we're talking about the giver of all life. That's who I'm referring to. And I'm sharing with you this first YouTube video on the goodness of life, the good life. It's available. Our world and earth is beautiful like right now. But it's really, a lot has to do with how you and I participate within it, what you choose to do. Now, as I begin to wind this down and wrap this up, because this is an introduction, we talked about the commandments. I said those were the principles of life. We talked about the statutes. Those are his laws. Okay? For example, gravity, the law of gravity works universally throughout the earth. Nobody is exempt from that unless you discover what? Another law that works higher than the law of gravity. That's how planes, aircrafts, what they call drones fly. They lift above gravity and stay up as long as they've got some other rules and laws in place that's superseded, they'll be okay. But as soon as something is violated, what happens? It usually begins to descent and fall. So I'm going to share some of the things that I've discovered about the laws of God. And then the third thing in the Bible here talks about his testimonies. Testimonies. Now, in our day and age, in the 21st century, we don't really use that word testimony a lot, but it would be likened to the word we use of stories. Stories. Like Jesus used the term in the Greek, a parable. A parable is a story being told. Jesus was he was excellent at telling stories, movies, books, novels. Those are all stories being told. So what God says, the way his book is written is in storytelling form. The story of creation, the story of Noah and the ark, the story of Abraham. When you read those stories, those are God's testifying to us. He's telling these stories to us and saying, look, here are people who live in the same earth that you're on today, in the same world, but in different time zones, different generations. And this is what they did to discover me. If you study these stories, which is his testimony, you will discover God. You will discover the goodness of life that I gave to them and be able to relate that to your life and enjoy the good life today. So I'm going to close this up today. I want to thank you for listening to this initial video on the good life, and there'll be much more to come to head. And I'm going to close with prayer. Father, I pray for all the viewing audience now who's able to see me live or streaming through YouTube. And Lord, I pray that as this lesson goes out on the good life that you've given me to give to the people, that it will touch their hearts and minds and their life wherever they are in the earth and bring them more into this land that you describe in Deuteronomy chapter 6, the land of milk and honey. Thank you.